A SOUQ morning to you, and guess why I'm excited? Because on the Isle and SOUQ News, the weekend starts on Thursday. So if you're celebrating TGIF, you're probably too late. I'm Ikenna Mbah, and this is SOUQ News Television. Our maiden show for today is SOUQ Business Landscape, the show where we take a look at business headlines from across the world and look at those ones that affect us and engage with us across all social media, definitely, with the hashtag SBL. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, we'll start off with Business Day Nigeria. Stay here with us. Welcome right back. It's still SOUQ Business Landscape. My guest is none other than Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze. Hello, Doc.
Thank you. Good morning. Good Nigeria. Great SOUQ.
Awesome. Like we will say in the other world where I come from, we'll say, "What's up, Doc? Can we rock?"
We rock, yeah.
All right, so we jump right into it. It's Business Day Nigeria. Firms expand Nigerian operations despite economic crunch. Look, it's not very easy to explain how there's expansion despite all the inflation, the lack of amenities and the things that are required to make life easier for these businesses, and they're expanding. Is there a secret we don't know about?
Well, there's no secret except that we keep pushing boundaries. We cannot just wait till we die. We have to keep pushing, and I think that's what it is. It's important that we know that globally a lot is happening. Development is actually platooning. And I think that's one issue that people of the world must come to terms with. And the fact that we have gotten to a certain point in world history that the resource that nature has given to us, we're almost exhausting it.
That's scary.
Yeah. So the room for expansion is really more now in areas that are yet to be developed, and that's in Africa and some Latin American countries. So this is where the opportunity really lies. And that's why you see it's not by accident that, for example, the Nigerian Stock Exchange is better and bigger than anyone else right now, doing better than anyone else right now, because this is where the opportunity lies. The civilized and developed world are going to some certain level, and further development, it have to be now something that is small, bit by bit, can be real massive.
True.
Like we can do in Africa. They've invested so much in infrastructure, and that's huge. And now, if there's no wider opportunity for expansion right there, profit coming small, and then the economy of those countries start to shrink. And I think this is time for Africa. And I remember our president, the last time he went to New York Stock Exchange, one of the things that he actually said there that Africa is the new bride, and the world must be ready to pay some dowry or bride price so that they can have the best of it.
All right. Talent gap threatens Nigeria's blockchain industry. So they're talking about lack of engineers and specialists in the blockchain. But what comes to mind is, for a while, blockchain, crypto, and all that wasn't really believed in. And I'm talking about Nigerian clients right now. So what happened? What changed?
Well, I don't think we have been prepared sufficiently for the change that is coming on the world in terms of positioning our educational system to produce the right people for the right job. And you know, since a lot has happened in Web 3.0, where, of course, almost everything is done on the internet, and we're talking about the Internet of Things, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about blockchain and all the manner of it. None of them is originating from our
They're also even talking about Web 4 coming.
Yeah, and we really, fourth industrial revolution is gone. We are now in the fifth industrial revolution, and we have not even moved to the second industrial revolution as a people. So that's where the gap really is coming from, because you have seen a situation where whereby your school system has not been able really to adapt to the changing times. So it will take us enough to do the catch-up.
Right.
So we are still doing the old curriculum. And yeah, of course, it's good to teach history. And I remember when I was in school then, talking about computer science we were learning. And the language of computer we were learning at the time, we're doing Fortran 77 when the world has moved on. Yeah, so these are the kind of thing that you see when your curriculum is not dynamic. So African curriculums have been too static. And I think we have to be very deliberate. So people are saying there is no job, there is no job, there is no job. But there are jobs. It's just that you don't have the right skills for the available job
to fit in.
Right. So that's why a lot of people are talking about unemployability, no longer unemployment. That many people who should be working, they are not employable.
Lacking capacity.
Yeah, capacity to be able to deliver on the job. So this huge gap, Nigerians must invest in it to close that gap. I have some friends who traveled as a result of the challenges in the environment, and they were working in the bank. And they are still there, night and day, they are consulting them. I have a friend yesterday who was telling me he had moved from one job to another. And I was asking him what he said. They're calling him from one place of work. And I said, why? You have left now. Nobody sufficiently to cover that place. So it's like working in two places.
True.
So no doubt there is a skill gap, talent gap in Africa. And we must do everything within our power to see how to show it up so that we can be at par with other countries of the world. But what's responsible really? No investment in research and development. And when we are giving money, we spend it on things that, no, we invest it in the present. Because for us, R&D,
by the future,
you can't see the immediate gain. And you cannot campaign that you have invested in R&D. The only one who can use to campaign is that I build a structure here, I build a structure here. So we are investing in building structure. But unfortunately, these structures we are building cannot redefine tomorrow. And the things that should redefine tomorrow, we are not investing in them. And I think that's a real problem in the educational system. And I think until the regulators really sit down to think about these things and make us futuristic, really now making our educational curriculum to be problem-solving driven.
And not just to look good.
Yes, problem in the environment. We have to deal with it. You can imagine now, go to a top-notch secondary school here or primary school or kindergarten here. You hear Montessori, you hear British curriculum, you hear American curriculum,
and that's strict with that. And where's the Nigerian curriculum?
And we are not in Turkey, we are not in Britain. So this is just the fundamental way we think, which means in our mindset, sending our children to school, we are processing them for an environment that is not theirs and ignoring our own environment. And I think some of all these things should be looked into.
Yes, you're right. CBN tightens grip on electronic transactions with new POS rules. This is obviously, should I say, clear to all. You could find that on page 30. Doc, you want to speak on that?
Well, I think it's important that...
Why do they even need new rules, by the way? Because it's plug and play, almost.
You see, the problem here is we are dealing with a lot of problems.
Okay.
Especially looking at the regulatory environment of CBN. All the monetary policy you see put in place is to create visibility for our currency for CBN. So we know where the monies are. You understand? So CBN can track the volume of currency in circulation.
Flow.
And that helps it to be able to really to make projections whether to tighten or loosen. But unfortunately, where the currencies are not visible, you can imagine you go to an ATM, there's no cash in it, and right there beside an ATM, and you see a young lady or a young man sitting down dispensing currency. So you can't oversight it. So which means a lot of people should still be keeping currency in their homes and not within the
premises of the POM.
Where CBN can see it in the banks. So I think it's important that we have to control how this work so that we can look at the flow of our currency, and then it will be easier to manage inflation within the environment. So I think there's also a lot of this, so that also we are not seeing people moving money through those angles, because they are selling money, really, that's what it is.
True.
So I think that there's a need to regulate that environment so we know who the operators are, and we also know where the source of their funds are coming from. So you don't have criminal fund now being channeled into the system via the POS operator.
Right. On to the next publication, Business Daily out in Kenya. Banks face ban for selling non-existent insurance. Wow. So new bank assurance licenses is at risk due to this, and unremitted cash leaves customers exposed. Doc, how can non-existent insurance be sold? How forward can one be?
Well,
fraudulent, almost.
That's not almost, that's fraudulent. How do you sell something that does not exist? Yeah, but there's a whole lot that goes on here. Sometimes they call it the Ponzi scheme. People give you all manner of hope, and then you buy into a system, and then all of a sudden they disappear.
You know what I remember, Doc? An artist, I think he was Italian, that sold a space as painting, and he explained he had a synopsis for air space, and someone bought it for $30,000.
Oh yes, it's possible.
I was shocked.
That's the world where we live in.
Non-existent insurance. Okay. Depleting power reserves shine a light on Uhuru Project's ban. That's in Kenya as well. It has to do with electricity and how it can get better.
Yeah, challenge of electricity is huge in Africa, especially where almost everything now runs on electricity, and we are moving away from the rural way we used to live, firewood and the rest of it, and then of course almost everything is powered by electricity right now. Now we are even moving into e-vehicles, so we're going to be charging and needing more electricity to do a lot of things, and that of course really will challenge the basic infrastructure that we have put in place as a people. And it only suggests that we have to be really proactive in terms of thinking about what we need as a people and how we can invest in technology, invest in creating the right infrastructure for a lot of business to happen in Africa.
Right. Kenya reinvestor wealth falls 24% after bonus shares issue. Kenya reinvestor wealth falls 24% after bonus shares issue. Next headline, universities failed to remit 958 million shillings SACCO deductions. How does that work? You have deductions and it's such a humongous amount to not remit.
Yeah, but
especially when it's not yours.
Well, it's a problem really now in this part of the world. And I think it's not just in Kenya. Even here we have the same problem.
Oh.
Most of the debates on whether, for example, academic staff should be captured on IPPS we're all bothered on issues like this. Because when a system is not transparent, you find that a lot of things are kept under the
loopholes are found.
Some people feel, of course, if your task, you are supposed to pay tax, you don't want to do it, and then you are running away from a system that's transparent, and so you are creating your own system. Before these things happen, but I think really people in the ivory tower should be really models for values.
True.
For the entire society, especially given the level of knowledge and understanding of how things work. But sometimes things are worse off around there, and that's quite really very sad.
Right. We're on to the next publication, Business Day in South Africa. Borrowing costs for states on way down. So the borrowing cost for states is on its way down, says Mary Yakuzi, who's welcomed as the government's fiscal discipline as the CEO of First Rand. She's talking about borrowing costs for states down.
That's good news.
It is.
Really massive news. If the cost of borrowing goes down, a lot of people can have access.
Yes.
And that really can also become a catalyst for economic growth and expansion. And I think a lot of African economists need to borrow a leaf from this.
You're right.
You know, I think it was, I was listening to one of Donald Trump's campaign yesterday, and he was making a promise that we will come back again to 2% lending rate. And I said, wow. And if you look at that, compare with what we have here, 26 at the official window, you see that we're almost near hellfire. You know, oh yeah, that is what it is. You see, a young lady, a medical doctor, said this some time ago in Uganda, and said, "Look, if Japan is borrowing money at 2% and I am borrowing at 46%, that's suicide."
It is, right?
It is. So how can I compete?
Well, is there a way that it can be uniform across board? No.
Yeah, it cannot be uniform across board, but I think nations should really work to see how to reduce risk in terms of lending and then drive rates down, and then people can make a lot of profit. That imbalance in the system is what really means some of us who are laymen, we cannot understand. You put money in the bank for savings, and you can't get 5% on it, but you want to borrow, and they are charging you 32%. I don't know the rationale.
Doesn't make sense, though.
But the bankers know how it works.
They do.
They do, of course.
And they don't seem to be sharing.
Yeah, many of us who are not within the space, we can't tell about it. Because I can't imagine that I am borrowing from you, you are charging me 32%. And I said, okay, you take I will use it to trade, and you are paying me 5%.
Doesn't make sense.
But that's what we have.
It is well. Financial Times USA. ECB reduces rates to 3.5% as inflation recedes and industrial output wavers. So unanimous decisions are reached to cut these rates, and threats from higher wages eases up, seems to ease up a little bit more. Euro and 2-year bond yields rise. ECB reduces rates to 3.5% off.
Yeah, but again, that's also good news.
Good news. Once inflation is receding, then
yeah, of course, we have to reduce rates. Inflation is getting better. We're saying there was more money in circulation. Now you have been able to manage it to some certain level. You also need to release few more money into it. Otherwise, the economy get into trouble. So this is the work of the Apex Bank of every country to look at the trend, study the trend, and with the right data, you'll be able to determine when to increase or when to reduce your rate. Right. That's good news for that economy. Some people will hear some self-relief.
Right. This one makes me smile. Your friend is being challenged. Your friend, what's his name now? The Virgin Atlantic man, and Elon Musk as well. So it says billionaire in spacewalk first. So US fintech billionaire Jared Isaacman peers out into space from SpaceX's Dragon capsule. and this is the first privately funded spacewalk. This just happened yesterday.
Wow.
Michael, what's his name again? The Virgin Atlantic man.
Branson.
Branson started it. Elon Musk took it a notch.
Yeah.
Now, Isaac Branson is joining them on this.
Yeah, but that's awesome, really. But this is what life is all about. Adventure.
Challenging the status quo.
Yeah, people just realize that, look, there's nobody who actually was born from heaven.
Born ready.
To be the best in everything. So we must always see how to challenge status quo.
You're right.
If there's any book that really had impacted my life, it's one book written by Professor Thomas Kuhn. The title of that book is The Structure of Scientific Revolution. And what Thomas Kuhn says in that book was that science don't grow linearly. It grows by disruption. So in other words, people don't set out to say, okay, we want to improve on this technology you have. That's not how science grows. Science grows to say, this is not the best version of this technology. Something is wrong with this. So let's create something better.
Right.
And that's quite contrary to the American slangs that says, if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Don't try to fix it. If it ain't broken.
Rightly, science says break it and fix it. And I think that a lot of us in Africa must learn this kind of disruptions.
Yes.
And to start to really fix things even before they break.
Right.
Creating solutions to problems that does not yet exist.
Wow. That's some futuristic work.
That's the way to make progress.
That's some mind expansion.
Yeah. So I think that's quite interesting for me to see people who are always trying to break boundaries.
All right. Boundaries. Consider yourself broken. Dollar stores suffer as consumer pain bites. This is a big read. Catch this on page 15. Dollar stores suffering as consumer pain bites. So it was yesterday, I think I read somewhere that the currency is having some type of fluctuations and not doing really well.
Yeah. Yeah, the dollar has suffered some major setback in recent years. And what that means is really, and that's the real challenge that people talk about in terms of savings, that the only way to actually kill your money is to save it. So once you save and put money in a certain currency and the value depletes, then of course we have lost a great deal. A lot of people have hedged their funding in dollar, but it is not stable as we seem it to be over time. And we've seen euro gain over dollar, pound gain over dollar. And as this currency is depreciating, of course, those who have stored their value also are losing some values. That's what it means. And of course, a lot of people, once this happens, this kind of dip happen, they also are in pain somehow. And I think this is what it is. So, but I think it's better that money be put to great use in terms of investment. And once money is put in investment, especially those investments that are not likely to depreciate in value, then you have a better deal. That's why a lot of big people who are making really good money and more in the real estate sector than in other, whether FCMG or even service investments.
That sector is
trusted. Of course, you know that the value of land will continue to go up. Appreciate. It can't depreciate, and you can't see it depreciate.
So, Doc, I wanted to ask, so as this is happening to dollar, doesn't it affect, being the main currency of in use, doesn't that affect economies around the world in some way?
Well, no, it's more will affect more the U.S. economy than it will other economies. So what that means is that the asset base of other countries who are benchmarking against dollar rises against dollar. That's what it means. So if it depreciates against us, so which means our value gets better, and their own value goes down. So in terms of competitive area advantage, you will find that those nations around will make more money than because they become richer in dollar than they were before.
Sounds good to me.
Yes, yeah.
Nokia searches for new CEO amidst stagnating sales. Nokia searches for new CEO amid stagnating sales. Despite a depressed share price and sales that are appalling, the Finnish group, which is Nokia, actually is one of the largest telecoms company in the world, like we know. They are seeking a new chief to replace the current CEO, Pekka Lundmark. That's a story to catch on page 6. Doc, Nokia,
Yeah,
still
that
doing
reminds me,
business?
innovate or die.
Hmm.
And
When was the last time you saw a Nokia phone?
quite a while, they've been doing all manner of things.
Really?
In short, I think the CEO before this one had actually said, well, we really didn't know what we did wrong. But this is where we are. Because when a brand is overconfident of its success, things like this happen. And if you're a follower of brands, you will understand these dimensions. And this happen when you find a brand becoming like a peacock with a lot of pride, because we are on top today. The fact that you are on top today will not make you to continue to be on top.
Right.
Because in life, really, nothing is static. You can imagine that if all of us are on a queue like this and we are walking toward a direction, if the man in the front is not taking a step, what happens?
Slow.
Other in the back will just get behind him. So he will be at number 2,
Go around him.
be number 3, be number 4. Before you know it, it's actually number 10. So it's really not actually static. It's actually motioning backward.
That's bad.
And that's what happened, even to brands. So when you play in a category and you are not studying your market and you are overconfident about the things that you do, somebody will just come from nowhere and displace you. Now you grow up with a lot of generic brands.
That has to the test of time.
Omo, Pepsodent, can call them all the name, go on Maggie, all of them. But the day when you look at the brands, they are no longer at the top, but they used to be at the top.
True. So true.
Real dominant, holding huge shares of the market. But
and peacocking.
Yes, of course, because they refuse to innovate and say, oh, we've been doing it. And then, of course, somebody does something that's crazily different from what people want, look into their lifestyle.
And like, what's going on?
You see? And the story is always there that Samsung actually had approached Nokia to say, well, let's make this telephone better. We have a technology we can share with you. And then, of course, they declined. And then they said, well, this is the best we can do. But what happened?
Samsung, like you aptly explained, went around them.
Android came in and took over the space. And now they are struggling for, is it struggling or even gasping for breath?
Even gasping for
breath. We hope that the new CEO will be able to turn things around, but the only way to turn things around is to do something.
But it's a lot of work to be done.
It's a huge work, really.
A lot of work.
It's a huge work to be done. And you see, that's what you don't want to happen to you, to lose your position. It's easier to gain a position than to regain it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something for the captions.
Oh, yeah. For people who are also thinking about going into big business, just remember the biggest thing and the greatest and most difficult thing to manage is success.
That's why a lot of people lose it. OpenAI fundraising push. OpenAI fundraising push. So the San Francisco-based startup OpenAI is aiming to raise at least $5 billion at a valuation of $150 million from backers such as Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Apple. In this deal, they said could nearly double their valuation. Now, OpenAI, how do they manage to valuate themselves at $150 million?
Oh, yeah, because almost everybody is turning to AI. Even governments now are adopting AI. Because that's where the world is.
Wow.
That's where the world is. It makes job easier. It makes things better. So there's no how that people will not, because you talk to people today, they say, oh, the future is AI.
Because no.
The future is AI. That's artificial intelligence. It's really, it's ruling the world.
It is.
And even some of us who sit down here in the mini houses and see that artificial intelligence will do your job for you and make it simpler. For song artists, they write their song and they can even voice it.
That's a scary one, though. You know, we're saying it on the show the other day. It's not just words now; it's visuals.
Yeah, that's where the industry is. So we can imagine that a lot of people see the future in it, and like we were taught in our elementary commerce, the primary purpose of an entrepreneur or a sole proprietor is what? To make profit. So men will always put money where profit is. Yeah. So you look at the prospect, the industry is growing and it's really very young. And those who put money right here now, that are going to really make it big. Just like some people talk about Bitcoin some few years back when it was just emerging. Today they said one value of a Bitcoin is about $57,000, and that's massive.
It's crazy, though. I'm one of the people that cry that I lost that.
I think people like John Jukes Rogers must be very happy.
Why do you say so?
Really value there.
It doesn't look like it, Doc. That story for another day. Google hit by data probe. So Europe's privacy watchdog is examining the US group over its processing of personal data in the development of an AI model. There you go, AI again. As these regulators tighten their scrutiny of big tech's AI efforts. Google. That's for Google to be looked at, and the watchdogs are not relenting. Isn't it something that we should even learn here? Because for them to chase Google and say there's something wrong in your data analysis, that's a good thing.
Well, but it is. Google is also heavily dependent on AI. So if you say it's not correct, then you go to prove it.
Oh, of course.
That's what it is. If you can prove that the data are not right, then you must be able to substantiate it or have quality or more depth in terms of what things they are. But I think really the world also really need to watch it so that we don't overhype AI in terms of its ability.
Yeah. Many are still afraid of it. I can tell you that. Next headline. The next publication that we're getting the next headline from is Gulf Times Qatar. GCC economies are competitive on global stage due to robust economic infrastructure. So Qatar Central Bank governor says this competitiveness ensures stability, security, and attracts foreign capital, while underscoring the critical need for member states to achieve shared goals and visions. We've always talked about the GCC states.
Oh yeah, the Gulf states
carry themselves.
I'm in love with the GCC. You see, this peer review is awesome.
It is,
and that's what Africa has not been really able to leverage. It's, you see, there's nothing like understanding that we are brothers.
Doc, is it an individual problem? Because it's mind-boggling. Is it an individual thing? Is it who a person is that is the problem we have in Africa and Nigeria? Or is it, I don't know, something else?
I think our problem is first and foremost ego. There's a way...
It's an individual thing.
Yeah, there's a way the African man is wired.
Or allows himself to operate. Probably necessarily not wired because we have good men.
Well, I think... In short, I was arguing some days back, somewhere, the really bigger problem really affecting Africa is the kingship structure.
Explain, sir.
Where everybody aspires to be a king.
Oh, you have a point.
And in Africa, kings are so powerful. They're actually real Leviathan.
True.
The land belongs to them.
They can do no wrong.
The human resources belong to them. And so they keep their domain. And that's why you saw that there was a whole lot, like in Europe in these earlier days, a lot of intertribal war still happening in Africa.
True.
And that's a struggle to keep a space. So when it's in business, you see it. Even in religion, you see it. Because it's a kind of a kingship structure. This is my domain. And I do everything to protect it. I don't allow people to come into it. So I'm a king in my right. Europe had been able to overcome that. And now the GCC states also have been able to overcome that. And what matters to GCC, for example, is really not about who you are, but it's about competitiveness. Now, how do you explain, for example, where you go to US, for example, you see some people are advocating that they want their public holidays and the rest of it. And then in UAE, you are seeing holidays that used to be Friday had moved to Sunday. Those decisions were not taken based on religious ground. They were taken based on sound economic reality.
Productivity. Considered.
That while we are sleeping on a holiday, we go on a holiday on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday we come back to work.
The Monday.
That Thursday and Friday, market is trading in Europe, trading in Asia. And we are losing out. You can see the economic thinking in it. But it does not take away that they are purely Islamic state.
True.
Because the day of worship really is not what really matters. It's your devotion to your creator that matters really.
And it can be whenever.
So you see some areas in Africa, they tell you that this is not movable, especially in cultural practices. They say it is not in our character. You hear people say, oh, this is not our culture. And we're trying to maintain something really that has not add value. So when you look at it in terms of value, people say the best of Africa is in their past.
Oh, good news.
So you only talk about the good old days. And whereas, in other time, their best is in their future.
Doc could go on and begin to dampen the mood on SBL.
No.
Because it's worrisome.
Not looking backward. We should be looking forward.
It's worrisome.
The best is in the future. No, you can imagine that somebody said today, there's no hope for this country. How? Because you're looking at yesterday. You cannot even open your mind to see tomorrow.
And change it yourself.
To change that narrative. That's why SBL is here. To change the narrative that our best is in the future, it's not in the past.
True.
And we have to deliberately rewire our consciousness.
Consciously, too.
To accept this reality that the future is bright. It doesn't matter what we are seeing right now. The confusion, the chaos is not a problem, but that we are hopeful that we can create a super solution to the chaos or the confusion or the problem that will make the future real bright. So nobody should give up hope. No. And that's the point, really, because people don't understand what is really the advantage. Globally, Africa owns 60% of uncultivated land. That's a plus.
Right.
It's a plus.
But Doc, from what you have said, it's not just seeing it, because many see it, they believe it from how they've grown up, how they've been wired. So they just wait for it to happen. when the actual work is, you make it happen. You see it, you believe it, then you begin to make it happen. You call meetings, you have conversations. How do we correct that thing that in your mind that you feel isn't making us progress? How do we change that? That's where it starts from.
You see, the issue, there's a psychological concept for it. They call it learned helplessness. A kind of an experiment was done some years back. You keep a dog in a cage, introduce current into it, it's shocked, but it's locked, it can't get out. And now, even the cage is open. You introduce the shock, the dog is used to the environment, he doesn't want to go out. That's learned helplessness. And I think that's a problem that Africans are suffering from. Because until we recognize that where there is a problem, there lies progress. Because our thinking and our brain opens to create a solution to that problem. And it is in creating the solution to that problem that those breakthroughs, those innovations, those inventions really happen. So for us, we should be able to see a future that is bright.
Yes, for sure.
And I tell anybody, who cares? I don't really think what you mean. We should be able to see beyond what people are doing today. Because the truth of the matter is that the future is dressed in a mechanic overall. You know how dirty it is? It's nothing to be desired. But that's what the future is.
You have to work it.
You just need to clean it up. Because gold in its natural state is not desirable.
Of course.
Until it's refined.
Dr. Amos, thank you for being on the show as usual and sharing your very, very insightful comments. We've come to the end of the show. SOUQ Business Landscape, hashtag SBL across all social media and on YouTube. Let's take this conversation over there. My name is Hans Mbah. Have a lovely morning.